When you experience Jesus, no one has to tell you that's Jesus.
I instantly knew this was Jesus. Instant.
He had this look on his face like it was just like joy.
It's like you could live your entire life for that moment just to see the smile of Jesus.
I'm his favorite person in the whole universe.
It felt like I was the only person that ever mattered to him.
And what I wasn't prepared for was this.
This impossibly bright light, like if it was actually light, it would have burned me. I was like, so overwhelmed by the brightness of the light. I was filled with ecstasy. And out of this light came hands and arms.
This light was alive. It was beyond a level of purity. It was beyond a level of holiness. But I looked down into the center and I can make out the shape of a man. And arms are outstretched like this.
And this man walks out from this light.
And then I saw a person appear in front of me, and his whole being was light.
His skin was light, like a glowing light.
And I noticed this. There is not a man that's in this light. The light is coming out of the man. It's pouring out of him. It's pouring out of him. It's pouring out of him.
And immediately I knew that it was Jesus.
I instantly knew this was Jesus. Instant. Not a doubt in my mind. No question.
And all I could say was, it's Jesus. It's Jesus.
When you experience Jesus, no one has to tell you that's Jesus. You know that is Jesus. Your body knows that is Jesus.
His robe was purple with some bluish hue. And on his chest, he had this band on it. It had these stones going across. He had a golden staff in his right hand.
I feel like a grain of sand to the ocean, like a single grain of sand. That's the only way I can explain it. It's like I'm a single grain of sand to the ocean.
And he said, I forgive you. And his words literally went through me.
It's like everything inside of you automatically knows that is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords.
Truly, this man is king above all kings. He is above all authority and all power.
He has all the authority. He can demand anything, and universe will bend by his words.
There's nothing stronger. There's nothing powerful. There's nothing more caring. There's nothing more wrathful.
Here's what threw me off, though. In all of this glory, in all of this splendor, he didn't seem to care or notice. Completely meek, completely humble, gracious, kind, and all he cared about were the people in front of him.
I said, Yeshua, and he said, I am he, little boy. And then I was like, oh, snaps. He really answered me. He called me a little boy, too.
I remember, I was like, oh, hey, Jesus, how you doing? You're here. How are you?
And I look at him and I'm like, hey, what are you doing here, Jesus? And when he looked at me, his smile, I'm trying not to cry. It's so overwhelming. It was so joyful, but it's like you could live your entire life for that moment just to see the smile of Jesus.
He had this look. He had this look on his face like it was just like joy, like almost like a smirk, a joyful smirk on his face.
I'm seeing more and more this deep, rich personality of Jesus. Like he's 100% human. I'm looking at someone who's 100% human and somehow 100% God all at the same time.
I knew that I was looking at the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, but I also felt like I was talking to my best friend. There was a warmness about Jesus. There was you felt his majesty. You felt like, man, this is a big deal. But at the same time, you also felt like you're just hanging out with your best friend that you just haven't seen yet.
Just like you would talk to someone who was your absolute best friend that you could ever have. You trusted them. You could just be you and just talk.
But if you had a dad and you said, Dad, can we go throw the football? And he said, sure, son. You know, come on, let's go. That's the only way I can describe his relationship with me at that time.
Man, look, Jesus, I think a lot of us are going to be shocked at how cool Jesus really is. Like how understanding he really, really is, and relatable.
And he allowed me for a moment to look into his eyes. And I saw his most beautiful eyes.
And then his head turns like that, and his eyes become wide and go right into mine. And I almost fell over backwards. His eyes saw into the deepest fabric of my existence.
When I try to look up, like to get a picture of his face or a view of his face, it was eternity. I knew he was eternal.
And what I wasn't prepared for was this. He saw everything, and his expression didn't change one bit. Everything that he saw in me, the real me, the me that no one else needs to know about me, he saw that me. He saw that. And it didn't put a dent in his love for me.
His eyes were like an ocean. When I would look into his eyes, I could literally see the depth of the ocean inside of them.
His eyes looked like pure coral reef, turquoise waters of life. Words never came out, but his eyes said this: I will never tolerate lies. I will not tolerate those who practice deceit. With a thunderous boom, his eyes said that.
It was almost like two televisions were inside of his eyes. And when I would look into that vast ocean that was inside of him, it's like I can feel myself surrounded by an ocean of love.
And I am being filled up with the love of God. And I am being filled up with it, and I'm filled up with it, and just like a water balloon, and with this pressure, you can actually feel it. And this pressure that's coming out of me almost to the point that I feel like I'm going to explode from the power of it.
I couldn't take it anymore. It was like I was about to explode. It was like blowing up the balloon to the point of popping. And I remember right when I got to that point, he stopped. And I was breathing. I was like, Lord.
His love is like you can't even contain it. Like it feels like he puts it in you and your body wants to explode from love.
The love that he felt for this one man was so intense. I actually felt like my heart was going to explode out of my chest.
I think to myself, he's made a terrible mistake. I don't belong here. And with that, we come to a stop. He spoke to me for the first time telepathically, and he said, we don't make mistakes. You belong here. And I thought, how do you know what I thought? I didn't say that.
When Jesus talked to me, he did not speak to me through words like I'm speaking to you now, where I'm using my mouth and I'm using words to communicate this story to you. He didn't do that. He spoke to me thought through thought.
Can you hear what I think? And he laughed and he said, I know everything you've ever thought. And I thought, I feel real uncomfortable with you knowing everything I've ever thought, because I've thought things that I don't want you to know that I've thought. And immediately I thought of something that I didn't want him to know that I thought about, which is I thought of a breast. I've always been a boob guy. And you know what he did? He laughed and laughed and laughed. He thought it was really funny. And I thought, oh, he thinks I'm funny. He said, yeah, you're real funny.
And so I asked Jesus, where were you? Why didn't you protect me? Why didn't you show up? I remember that he looked at me, and he looked at me with a sadness in his eyes, like if he understood much more than I did what I was experiencing and what I had experienced. And the Lord first told me this, Freddie, even though you did not see me, it didn't mean that I wasn't there. I was there when you were 5 years old.
We might call it something horrible and devastating, but what we need to see is that that very thing that looks so horrible and devastating could be that very thing that will bring you and I to the end of ourselves.
And I'm just rapid fire these questions, and he is filling me up with libraries full of information. But then I got this realization: everything about you is true. So everything about the cross, that's true too. And my goodness, okay, it was a Roman cross. It had a cross beam up at the top, and his arms were splayed out, stretched out really wide. And he wasn't hanging loosely, he wasn't anything like that. It was very, very painful. He was stretched to the limit. He was covered in blood. He was battered and beaten. It was almost as if you could barely even make out that he was a man. He was beaten so bad. His beard was half pulled out. He had blood running down his face. It was running all down his body. It was just, his hair was very dark, and it was matted as I'm seeing him on the cross. It's covered, matted with his blood, and it's got dirt and everything in it. He's got this crown of thorns just pressed down on his head. It can't move. It's stuck there. And I can see the agony that he is in. I can also hear his thoughts, and his thoughts towards me personally. And I knew in that moment, I get from him that if I was the only person in all of creation that ever would have said yes to him, he would have gone to that cross, the one he's on right now. He would have gone to that cross just for me. He would have gone through this just for me. And I knew this was the truth too, is that he would do that for every other person.
Even if it was just you or just me or just one person, he would do it all over again.
It was just like so overwhelming, like the love that he had for me. Like it felt like I was the only person that ever mattered to him. Like when he reached down, grabbed my arm, he said, "My son, whenever you fall, I'll pick you up." And the jolt of lightning, it was like a yellowish lightning comes through my body and it engulfs my whole body.
When he held me, I knew that there was some, besides all this healing and love and all that he really, really liked me a lot. Matter of fact, I'm his favorite person in the whole universe. I have to add, unfortunately, you are too.
When my eyes met his, it was as though I was the only one in creation, the only one he had ever created. He knew me that intimately and loved me that deeply.
It's like, and this is why they talk about the personal relationship, because yeah, he does everything, but he wants to have that personal relationship with you. It's like you're the only thing that matters to him, and you know that everybody matters to him. Like it's kind of hard to explain. You can't even explain it.
He wants so badly to have a personal, intimate relationship with you and me. He wants that so badly that he was willing to go to that cross for you and for me.